As you can imagine, much of my baby break was spent getting used to having a newborn in the house again, and learning what he likes and dislikes. Turns out, my son is a fan of music, which should come as no surprise to those who know me and my semi-secret love of musicals, or those who know my husband and his collection of musical instruments. There was one day when it seemed nothing would put him to sleep. He was just fussing and crying, and I had no other ideas, so I just started humming to him. But it was like I flipped a switch, and instantly he closed his eyes, settled down, and fell asleep. While I kept humming to him, I began looking up how and why the singing worked, which brings us to today's topic. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the Story Behind Lullabies. But first, a quick message. If you like this podcast, you might be interested in other podcasts that focus on the humanities. In fact, if you search Twitter for the hashtag #Humanities_podcasts, you'll find plenty of shows on history, language, literature, philosophy, art, and more. These are podcasts by people who enjoy telling stories, exploring the arts in our world, and who want to share their knowledge. Some examples of podcasts you'll find are Go Dig a Hole, an archaeology podcast, the Trojan War podcast, which retells the classic myth, and As We Like It, where three friends talk about film adaptations of Shakespeare. Search the hashtag #Humanities_podcasts today, or follow Humanities Podcasters on Twitter. And if you're a Humanities podcaster, use the hashtag in your tweets so others can find you. As far back as we can tell, lullabies have been around as early as 2000 BC. On a palm-sized clay tablet dating back to ancient Babylonia, or modern-day Iraq, is a lullaby written in cuneiform script. The lyrics actually warn the child to quiet down, or else a demon will wake up and eat him. But if you think that's the most menacing thing one could sing to their own child, know that similar warnings are sung to children even in modern times all over the world in their lullabies. Take a look at the tragedy of a tree branch breaking and a baby falling from it we mindlessly sing in Rockabye Baby. Since many lullabies are passed down from generations ago, it's easy to forget that songs, nursery rhymes, and even fairy tales weren't as family-friendly as they are today, with some even being downright morbid and scary. But since babies don't understand the language yet, it's more the soothing tones of the song rather than the lyrics that help relax the baby. When a baby is inside the mother's womb, there is little from the outside he can sense. In fact, the reason noise machines for infants feature white noise and heartbeats is to mimic what the fetus experiences as their hearing develops inside the womb. Now that we have a newborn, there is a good chance at any given time you'll walk into our house and hear white noise, since our son sleeps best when hearing it. Although while I'm recording this episode, he's currently nursing, so you might hear him in the background. It might be muffled by the white noise, but they are still aware of it, and it's said lullabies sung by the mother can in fact act as a bridge between life in the womb and life outside of it. This can also work if, while in utero, the baby is exposed to others' voices on a consistent basis. From the number of podcasts I listen to, I often wonder which podcast host my son is most familiar with, actually. There's even a story of a brother who sang "You Are My Sunshine" every night to his baby sister while she was in his mother's tummy. And when the baby was born with health problems and didn't look like she would make it, it was her brother singing to her that brought her vitals up and she made a miraculous recovery. Okay, I'm still fighting with new mommy hormones, so don't mind me as I tear up a bit, even though Snopes.com has deemed this legend only. One thing I didn't do with my children was sing the most basic lullabies, the ones everyone knows. Mostly because I've heard them too much that I was sick of them before even having children. But when you think about these lullabies, did you ever wonder why they were so effective? Soothing tones and gentle rhythms seem to make the most sense for why a lullaby would help a baby fall asleep. And for those of you like me who can't stand traditional lullabies, CDs of more popular songs made into them have become popular, like the Rockabye Baby CDs, with more gentle covers of artists like Journey, which you're hearing now, Aerosmith, The Beatles, Kanye West, and even the Hamilton soundtrack, making them more palatable to adult ears. But studies have shown that having familiar voices sing these lullabies can be the most effective at soothing a child. Not only that, singing lyrics to a song or even reciting nursery rhymes can help support early language skills. Music itself has been proven to be beneficial to aid in learning for babies and young children. But while you may have heard of the Mozart effect, the idea of playing classical music for babies can make them smarter. Scientists have had mixed findings on this and even warn against using classical music as a substitute for general play and interaction from parents. And along the lines of popular music, the Beatles' Good Night or Golden Slumbers would make sense as a lullaby. However, the songs Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds or Norwegian Wood might be more effective because of their 3/4 time signature. Commonly known as the waltz time signature, 3/4 and the similar 6/8 time signatures mimic rocking, and many traditional lullabies from all over the world are written in those time signatures. Going back to the idea of the mother's womb, the rocking motion and even the beat of the lullaby mimic the motion the baby felt before being born. And if you'd like a playlist of songs to use as lullabies that are in 3/4 and 6/8, included in the show notes is a link to a Spotify playlist I've put together for my son with some of my favorites. Brahms' Lullaby, also known as the Cradle Song, was written in 1868 and originally called Wiegenlied Guten Abend, Guten Nacht, which is German, probably badly pronounced German, for good evening, good night. And one theory about its origin was it was based on a Viennese song a woman named Bertha Faber used to sing to Brahms. It's unclear if he had a romantic relationship with her when they first met, but when he rekindled his acquaintance with her after a number of years, after she was married and had a child, he sent the song to her with the intention that while she was singing her son to sleep, she might realize he had written it as a love song for her. The song was also recorded by a representative of Thomas Edison in 1889, and is considered the earliest recording made by a major composer, even though the piano is mostly inaudible because of heavy surface noise. As for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, it's commonly attributed to Mozart, but it actually comes from an old French melody. Mozart did compose a set of 12 variations based on it, most likely while he was in Paris in 1778, and it was given the lyrics from a poem called The Star by English poet Jane Taylor. The origins of Rockabye Baby and Hush Little Baby are both varied and hard to pinpoint, but I think we can all agree the R&B version of the latter, written and recorded by Inez and Charlie Fox, and popularized by James Taylor and Carly Simon, became more of a novelty song rather than an actual lullaby. And it would be difficult for anyone to sleep through the renditions sung by Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels in the 1994 movie Dumb and Dumber.
Mockingbird, don't everybody have you heard? She's gonna buy me a mockingbird. And if that mockingbird...
Information for this episode was sourced from HowStuffWorks.com, ScientificAmerica.com, KinderMusic.com, the BBC, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com, where you can also find the link for the Story Behind Lullabies playlist on Spotify. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StoryBehindPod, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for some bloopers featuring the podcast debut of Cameron. This is your first podcast, buddy. What do you have to say? Okay. Although while I'm recording this episode, I'm currently nursing him, so you might hear him in the background. Dude, we get it. You're here. Brahms Lullaby. Dude. Well, you were interrupting. Thanks for listening. Dude, stop moving my mic. Come on. Really, stop moving my mic. Stop touching my mic. Thank you for being nice and quiet while Mommy was recording. Do you want to be a podcaster now? Yeah. It's a lot of hard work. Oh my goodness. Oh!